And joining us now from paradise, as she calls it, literally. I mean, she thought about doing this interview from the beach, but she decided just do it from her home with the great background and her dog. Is the FAU head coach, second year in her as head coach at Florida Atlantic. Obviously, was a standout player in her own time there at Miami of Ohio, one of the greats there, actually. Speak of Jordan Clark, back with us on the show. Lots have happened since we've last had her on, so it was good about time we got her back on. You've been busy in paradise.
I've been busy. Thanks so much for having me back. I'm excited to talk about all the owl things and everything that's going on in paradise, and just glad to be here.
Well, upgrade, definitely made an upgrade. And last time when we had you on, you were in a hotel as we were talking off air. So I've definitely, our background's already improved. But let me ask you this first question. You gone through that? How did you went through that first year and you reflected on your first year there? What
Yeah,
comes to mind?
I think growth. I think that the program is in a much different place. I think people now recognize FAU, and I think it's a hot topic across the country with recruits, and not just in the state of Florida. I think that the previous staff did a really good job of letting the state know who we were, and now we're trying to expand that. And winning 35 games, finishing in the top of the conference, landing some really big recruits across the country, dipping into some different travel ball teams, some facility upgrades. I would say year one was tiring, but it was also exciting. I can't believe, we're already moving into year two, but I think that I couldn't have asked for a better first year. And I think that there was a little doubt around the program. There was a little doubt of what's going to happen with a new staff, a young staff, a returning lineup, adding in transfers. And I think our girls just shocked the world a little bit. And I credit the girls, I credit our staff. Without them, people wouldn't be talking about FAU the way they are now. And so I'm just so thankful. I'm so thankful that the girls bought into the vision, and our staff and our support staff. So year one, success, and we're ready for year two.
What'd you learn about yourself being in that chair now as a head coach? It's one thing to be an associate head coach or an assistant like you've been
Right.
previously, but now you were the head coach. What did you learn from last year you take away that you'll apply maybe this year, something you'll keep in your back of your mind?
Yeah, you wear a lot of different hats. And I was always told that. And I always watched my former bosses, be in their office a lot. And I'm always like, what are they working on? What are they doing? Like, what are we doing? And now I know that you're not just a hitting coach, right? Like, whereas before you can spend hours in the cages and you can have one-on-one meetings with players, and you can really dive into the development piece, and you can still do that as a head coach, but you're pulled into administrative meetings, development meetings, radio shows. You're pulled in so many different directions, and it's awesome. And you never want to say no. I think that's the one thing you guys will learn about me is I never say no to an opportunity. I think that everything is worth it. So figuring out how to have enough hours in the day, but also have balance. I think if you ask anyone around me last year, I was married to my job. I was there at 7 a.m. and I left at 10 p.m. Whereas this year, I really told myself that I wanted to find balance, and I wanted to be able to enjoy everything that Boca and softball and life has to offer. Whereas year one, I was just so devoted to the program and everything that went to it. So year one, I learned that about myself, is that you can't say yes to everything, but you can try to give different projects to people and know that they're going to do a great job as long as we all have the same vision.
That's a great point you make about balancing act, especially balancing life with family. Obviously, you're married. You're married and
Yeah.
everything. How difficult was that for you to? Because you realize, wow, I got more things to do as a head coach, but I've got a life outside of softball that supports me, but I need to support them in return as well. So how do you balance
Yeah.
it? Figure out that balancing act, which is a challenge.
Yeah, it was really hard. I'm gonna be honest. My personality, let's go, right? Let's do it. Let's make it great, and let's give everything you have to your program. And so, yeah, I struggled with that. At times my husband's like, "Hey, you coming home? Hey, I cooked dinner," and I'm like, "I'll be there at 10. We'll have to warm it up." Or, "Hey, do you want to meet for dinner?" "Yeah, we want to meet for dinner." "Oh, wait, I can't come last minute." So I think there was a lot of that. I think that you have to be honest, and you have to have really good communication skills with everyone around you, even to my families or to my family, where you're used to like talking on the phone, texting them all the time. And, it's definitely different. And people always say, you never know if you're ready for a head coaching job. Everybody's like, I want to be a head coach. And don't get me wrong, I love it. I love everything about it. But I also think you have to find that balance. And year one, I think you could ask any young head coach across the country, there's not balance year one. There's really not. And people will argue at times year two, there's not balance either.
Right.
But I do think that, you kind of have to find what works best for you. And I think I have an amazing staff. We've hired some new people and gotten some GAs, and it's been awesome just to see it grow and to be able to step back a little bit and go, you don't have to do it all on your own. That's why you hired amazing people. So I think that's something that I've really taken in this year, is using the people around you and knowing that you can walk away at the end of the day and it's not going to crash and burn. You're going to wake up and it's going to be there the next day, and you just keep marking off that to-do list one at a time.
It's an important year for the program. It's an important year for the university. Obviously, now you're in the American Athletic Conference, first year. You're, going to be months away from that first conference game. Just take us through behind the scenes on that. We spoke last year. I know that was appealing to you about the fact that you were going to the American, and you had talked to Brian White, who's the AD, about that. But now you're here. It's reality. What has that process been like as the university goes from CUSA to the American, and you enter the first year of the league?
Yeah, I mean, you look at men's basketball for us, finished top 4 in the country, the men's Final Four. They put us on the map, and they kind of told everybody, "Hey, American, here we come." And then you look at all of our different sports teams. Soccer went through the transition first. They made some waves. They had some big wins in the American. And I will say, from an organization standpoint, having our coaches meetings and talking through what does the year look like in the American, I can definitely feel a difference. And it's not a knock to Conference USA at all. You just start to feel that next level. What is that next level for our program, for our school? How do we make this thing feel like we are at a Power 5? And that's something that I preach to recruits all the time, is we're not going to talk about mid-major versus Power 5, right? We're going to make you feel in everything that we do that you are at the best of the best. And so we're excited. The competition in the American, bringing over some Conference USA teams as well that finished towards the top. I think it's going to be a really good year. I hate that Houston and UCF left from a softball standpoint. They're two great schools, very respected, but I'm really excited about the competition. I think when we talk to recruits and their families, they're excited about the transition. All of your home games being on ESPN Plus and just some different resources has been huge. And that's something that when I took the job was really important to me, of, hey, I don't want to be at a school that is stuck here. I want to be at a school that we have the ability to keep making moves forward versus taking steps back. And so with our administration, with our support staff, with the American, you can start to feel the different energy moving into the American. And so I'm excited to see how year 1 plays out.
It's a lot of coaching different personalities, too, in that league, as you know.
Yeah.
What has that been like? I mean, you got Ken Erickson's a lifer at USF. You got Vance Studerman, who's in her first year back, and over there at UTSA. You got Ronnie DeLaw. I mean, a lot of different personalities in this league.
Yeah. So our first coaches meeting, I kind of sat back and just listened, and I didn't really know when to chime in, because some of these people have been in this conference and have been a part of college softball for so long. And you're the new coach. You're like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I want to kind of sit back and listen. So then I got elected for the head coaches committee for the NFCA for our conference. And it was awesome. But I'm sitting here going, all right, okay, I've got to really know what I'm doing. I've got to be able to use my voice. So it's definitely been awesome. And I look at Christy at what she's done at Wichita State, and you look at Ken, who's just a legend, and you look at those two people, and it's like, hey, I'm not going to try to be them, but definitely I'm going to take things from them because they've been successful at this level, and they know how to run a winning program, and a program that is recognized nationally. So I think that's awesome to have kind of that footprint in our conference.
You're going to play some different teams you haven't played before. I mean, for you, it's unique because last year you had to adjust to the Conference USA and the opponents and their styles and the stadium. Now you're kind of doing that again in some cases, not in everybody, because, for example, teams like Charlotte's, with you, North Texas. But, we had Ronnie DeLong, and he admitted, we scout some of the facilities, some of the cities, just to be familiarized because we haven't been there before. Yeah. You're in that similar boat with the way the conference schedule's played out. Do you do some of that? Obviously it's still months away from conference games, but do you kind of start peeking a little bit? All right, this is a certain city we haven't been to before. Now, in your case, you've been to some of these places, but not necessarily at FAU.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that when you look at travel's tough. Being in South Florida, USF is the only team that we can drive to. So every away series is a flight, where some people don't have that, right? They get to drive and they get to be closer to their conference opponents. So we know right away that, we are going to be on the road. I think that the thing that our team has to transition to is we host the first 3 weekends, and, the 4th weekend we're on the road. Well, we knew that our first conference series is against Wichita State. weather in Wichita, Kansas is different than in Boca Raton, Florida. And so we decided that we were going to go to the University of Arkansas the weekend before that, which is the start of our spring break, so that our girls could get acclimated to weather. So that the first time we were showing up for our first American Conference series, we weren't in the cold of Wichita, Kansas. And so that's something that we pay attention to a little bit. Luckily with some of our away trips, we go to Charlotte, we go to North Texas. Those are two teams that our girls have played at. And so it's some familiar foes. So I do think that there is an advantage to playing at different places, but I also think that the weather is the biggest difference for us. Our girls, it's 75 degrees and sunny here. And so we're outside at practice every day. So I think that's going to be our biggest challenge, is just adjusting to that. And so, yeah, it's going to be cool just to go to some different places and see some familiar faces and also some new places as well.
Now, you called it spring break. I thought it was the Jordan Clark tour, the homecoming tour. I thought that's
Okay, it is. Selfishly, I'm from Arkansas, and we're gonna go to University of Arkansas. We're gonna go to UCA, then we'll go to Wichita, then we get to Memphis this year. So I selfishly planned that trip, and it just worked out that it's really good opponents that are gonna help us out when it comes to RPI and it comes to some different things. And so I was like, hey, best of both worlds, and let's just do this.
which of those road games are you going to have the most ticket demand?
Ooh, Memphis.
Really, Memphis?
So Memphis is 15 minutes from my hometown. And so my phone has blown up since we released our schedule, and everybody knew. People just didn't know, are we playing it at Memphis, or are we playing it at FAU?
Right.
And so now that it's out, everybody's really excited. It kind of makes you nervous a little bit in a cool way, of like, wow, like these are people that have seen me since I was a little girl to now running a program at the Division I level. And they get to see me in all different phases of life, being a high school student to college, because my college team, we played at Memphis. So now bringing my team to Memphis, like, it's just really cool. University of Arkansas, when we play there, we're going to have a ton of fans as well. But I told people, I was like, you can't wear hog gear. You are wearing FAU owl gear, and it is what it is. So you're going to have to commit to it. And so a lot of people are diehard Razorback fans that I know and love. And so I'm like, listen, you got to pick. We're not doing both.
Ooh, yeah. And let's get in that, because your schedule was announced recently,
Yeah.
and you've challenged yourself here.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you're going to open at home for the next few weekends, but I want to highlight that first weekend. You've got Marshall, Penn State, Ohio, Michigan State, and Arkansas coming in there. Now you're going to go to Arkansas, so it works out as a home and home. I don't know if that was the plan all along, or it just worked out that way. But I want to bring this up because you've obviously, when we had you on, it's no secret, you obviously was at Arkansas, worked for Coach Deifel. She's a mentor of yours. She's somebody you look up to. What does it mean to you that she's willing to help come to your place? Because as you know, she doesn't have to. A lot of coaches wouldn't go there. But she goes there not only for her own purposes, but to also probably help you out. That's going to be, I would assume, a box office game. What does that mean to host her?
Man, I just first of all, I'm really excited. I'm excited that our two worlds get to collide. And I'm forever indebted to Courtney. Courtney knows, like, that's my girl, and I still take so many things from her and that staff in general. And so for them to come and see me in this new environment, in this new setting, is just priceless. And it's so surreal when I look at the schedule. I'm like, wow, like they're coming here, we get to go there. And she's going to be a legend in our game, and what she's done with Arkansas's program, what she's done for the state of Arkansas, it's just something that I hope to do half as good as her at FAU. And so she's definitely taught me some things. But it's opening night. It's the primetime time slot. Our fans are so excited to see this new team. We've got a bunch of new girls on our roster, and so I'm excited. I really am.
No, and like I said, that's going to be a marquee there, and you'll return the favor in a few weeks later when you go to her tournament. Have you been back to Arkansas and played a game there since you left Arkansas?
No, so
Wow.
I have not been back to play a game. I've gone back to watch a super regionals. And so I've always said if I'm not playing in a regionals or a super regionals, that is usually where I'm spending postseason at. And so just because those are good friends and those are people that, where we started our career at. And so still going back and supporting and learning. And, some of the girls that we recruited before early recruiting are still in the program. And so it definitely has a special place in my heart. But no, I have not been back. It's going to be weird. It's going to be exciting. But definitely one that we all look forward to.
All right, we got to make sure you and Courtney got to make sure whoever's the photo person at the respective stadiums to get the photo of you two exchanging the lineup card or exchanging in the post game something. All right, that's got to something because I know when Coach Ball Malone got to UCF in her first year, she got Heather Tarr in Washington to come to UCF, and that meant a lot to her. And took a photo of that because that's like a big moment, somebody has impact. So that would be my recommendation for the two of you.
I love it.
Let me ask you about your scheduling philosophy because you're opening at home that opening weekend, as I mentioned. You're going to be home for the first month, basically, of the year, but you're challenging yourself. You've got Louisville coming in. You've got Michigan coming in. Mentioned Arkansas is coming in, among others. And there's more of that before you go on the road to Arkansas in that first weekend of March. You've got Indiana coming to your place later on in the season. Just talk about your philosophy from a non-conference standpoint to get you ready for conference.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be the best, you got to play the best, and you got to play people with tradition. You've got to play people that have been there and have done it. And so we wanted to make sure that at the end of the season, if we took care of business, that we were giving ourselves a chance to have an at-large bid if it didn't work out in the conference tournament. And so that was something big for me is that, we're not going to be scared to go against competition, and we're going to grow before conference starts. Hopefully we're going to play some really good pitching, some good offenses to challenge our pitchers. And so that was something that was a non-negotiable for me. And it was something when I got hired and I talked to Brian about it was like, hey, we're going to swing big, and, we might miss at times, but I at least want to be able to look in the mirror at night knowing that I gave our girls every single chance to be successful in their career. And some of our girls have never made postseason. Some of our girls, when we got here, didn't talk about postseason. They're like, hey, we hope we make conference tournament. And I'm like, guys, that's a non-negotiable. We're going to make conference tournament. We're going to hopefully be towards the top of conference. We are going to try to set some new standards that, we want to be a team that people remember in the American. So I think that was something that when we looked at scheduling, I'm very fortunate that I've had some mentors who love numbers and love doing their research on who to play and what's going to help you. And so I made sure that there was a little strategy to it, and taking in teams that we could help them and they could help us was important. But we definitely wanted to feel prepared before the American. Opening up with Wichita State, it's one of the best teams in our conference. It's a regional team. It's a team that's put up crazy numbers from the offensive standpoint. And so we wanted to be battle tested. And so I thought, what better way than to bring in some Power 5 teams, some teams at mid-major levels that have won their conference. You look at UCA and okay, it's not a Power 5 team, but it's a team that just made people look silly last year. And so it was important for me. I think with our roster this year, I do think that we got some talent on there. And I think that they're battle tested as well in their own careers. So I think we're ready. But you just see how it goes.
Yeah, and then I mentioned on the road, you're going at that tournament in Fayetteville. You play Arkansas, but you're also playing South Dakota State twice and Southeast Missouri. Then you go to Central Arkansas, as you mentioned, for that midweek before you go to Wichita. That's going to be a big bonding moment on the road for that lengthy a period of time. And Deifel didn't go easy on you either on the scheduling there.
No, South Dakota State is really good pitching. Southeast Missouri, they've definitely made waves and strides in their program over the last couple of years. And so, before we get to Wichita State, we're going to know exactly what we're made of that week. And so we hope that the Owls are still, stuck together. And, but yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge, but we're definitely up for the challenge. It's something that we talk about. We don't shy away from it when we release the schedule to our team. It fits into our team theme. And so we're ready.
It's no secret now in college softball, every staff has that one person who, regardless of who's in charge of the scheduling, either that person or somebody else on the staff knows the formula as far as the keys to philosophy, as far as scheduling. Make sure that you give yourself a great schedule. Certainly Coach Deifel is there, and she's giving credit to Matt Michael about that as well, helping on the schedule front. Do you do that on your own? Do you have people on your staff that help you from a scheduling philosophy standpoint?
Yeah, as our staff, we talk about it, right? You get the emails of who's interested in coming. We kind of talk through what is it that is going to be a good matchup for us. So our staff are super inclusive. We talk about almost anything and all things, but ultimately, I make the final decisions on it. I'm the one that reaches out to the teams and kind of has that communication. Because at the end of the day, I know that it falls on me, right? And I know that it is, if we don't get in at the end of the year, or if we have all these wins, but maybe nothing to show for it at the end, that I got to hold that control. So I do think that I take a little bit of that stress and that pressure, and I put it on myself so I don't have to put it on our staff. But we all have relationships in the field. And so I think sometimes if teams are interested or we know a different staff better, we'll have each other reach out to those specific staffs. But I like crunching numbers. I like diving into what are some good matchups. What did they have last year? What are they going to have this year? And really trying to dissect rosters and figure out, okay, is this a good match for us? I think that it's easy and it's hard because a lot of young coaches battle, hey, I want to create this winning record and I want to pad our schedules and make sure I get a lot of wins. And so for me, yeah, like, could you go and play and try to win 40 games easy? You could. Or do you want to try to win 40 games and play against the best teams in the country? I think that there's something to be said for that. And that was something that was important for me is, hey, let's challenge ourselves a little bit and see what we're made of.
Well, in the American, it's been proven over the years, the American has been consistently a multi-bid league up until 3 bids, even 4. And a big part of that is the non-conference scheduling that not just you do, but others in the American do. That's the advantage that you have is you've got that room for air there where you play yourself a schedule. You're going to put yourself in a chance if you win the right games and enough games to put yourself, as you mentioned, to the NCAA tournament and postseason.
Well, and I think too, a lot of people, like, when you're looking to take a job and you're looking at, where is that opportunity going to be in South Florida, you live in a place where you can host, right? I'm going from being at a school where we had 13 home games to this year, we're going to have 34 home games. There's a big difference in that. And so you get to make your schedule. You get to decide who's in your tournaments. You get to decide what time slots do you want people in. So there's so much advantage to it. And I think a lot of times we just look at jobs like, ooh, I'm going to take this job. And it's like, hey, can I be successful? Can I, do this the right way? And so this was a job that I was like, this is a no-brainer. You get to make your schedule. You're going to get 75 and sunny. You're going to get your games in. You have people that want to come to South Florida. It's a destination area. With Joan and all of her relationships, people still feel loyalty to want to come back and to honor her name. And, it's so special just knowing that people want to be a part of that. And so it makes it easy when you do have to put a schedule because it's South Florida and people want to come here. And so we're super thankful for that we do have a good reputation and, our event management staff does it the right way. We bring in good umpires. People want to keep coming back. And that's something that I don't take lightly is making sure people have the best experience playing in our tournaments and at our home field.
Let's talk about your team. You've got a lot of new faces, but I want to start with the returners. And one in particular, Gabby Sacco, who I think helped obviously made a name for herself last year, had a great year last year, all region pitcher. Just talk about her, what you've seen from her this fall, and what you expect from her, because she led the way for you last year.
Yeah, Gabby's Gabby, right? She put us on the map, and I'm forever indebted to Gabby and how she handled her business last year. I think there's a little bit of pressure. There's a little bit of nervousness for her. Like, how do I repeat last year? And the big thing that we've been talking about is you're not. Right. You're going to be Gabby, and whatever the year brings is what the year brings. And so, she's gotten creative, her and Nicole in the bullpen and figuring out, okay, I don't have to be completely different, but what am I going to add to my arsenal to make me look a little bit different? Because people are going to scout you better. You are going to be listed as the number 1. Whereas last year you got to sneak through it and be the number 2 because we had Lynn Gardner at times, which was an all conference returner. So now you're not a surprise, right? Now people are going to expect you to pitch. And so for her, she's just really gotten in the weight room. They've really gotten into working on developing and feeling her body a little bit more and just being a little bit more detail oriented in the bullpen. I think she's already got the bulldog mentality. She's all of 5'5", 135 pounds. And so, you've got to have that little special sauce to you that you're better than your opponents, no matter who's coming at you. So Gabby's Gabby. She's awesome. We are so excited to have her. We added Trinity Schlotterbeck and Jaden Martinez in the circle as well. Jaden's a lefty from USF, started 15 games in them. So she has American experience. Trinity's coming off the Big Ten, having her best year ever. And so to add those two, we want Gabby to not feel pressure that on her bad days that it all rides on her. And so we wanted to make sure that it was a balanced pitching staff so that we could give the ball to anyone on a given day. And whether it's for 3 or 4 innings or whether she goes the full 7, we wanted her to feel like she had help. And we still have Ainsley Lambert, who was one of the best closers in the country last year, finished top 40 nationally in a lot of statistics. And then you have Kelsey Indris, who was a freshman who only pitched 3 innings for us. But if you saw the way she handled the fall, you'd be like, where did you come from? So I can truly say we're 5 deep, and that helps Gabby. And I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but Gabby's Gabby. She's a bulldog, but knowing she has help has made her feel a little bit better.
Well, and you mentioned Schlottenbach and Martinez. I was kind of blown away when you got Trinity. That was like, whoa. That kind of took me aback because you mentioned she had an incredible year at Maryland, can hit a little bit too. Was an all Big Ten defensive player. I want to ask her about her. How do you envision using her? Because there's a lot of things that she provides to the team beyond just pitching.
Yeah, let me tell you what, when she said yes to us, I was ecstatic because she's a game changer, right? She is a program changer. We only have her for a year, but she is going to be somebody that is going to her legacy is going to be way more than just a year for us at least. When you look at what can she do, right? She was their number, we say 1A and 1B at Maryland last year with their 2 pitchers. So you're coming in somebody that's a starter. She's going to be a starter for us. She is going to throw games. She is going to be on the mound in some way. In some big moments. She's probably going to hit in our lineup every single day. And so she can do a lot of different things. So I think that's something that's special. The teams that she had after her, you're looking at it and you're like, wow, we did that, right? So that was something that was huge for our staff. And I think the cool part is she believes in us. And every day she says, thank you, right? And so she's so excited to be here. And she's just been a dream come true for our staff and for our program and the leadership with our team. When she speaks, she's heard. So she's definitely a special human that is going to make big waves for our team this year.
You mentioned she'll probably hit a lot of times in
Yeah.
your lineup. Where do you play her when she's not pitching? And how do you balance her from her pitching responsibilities, working in the bullpen, but also being part of the offense, beating the cages up? That's a lot for a player to do to not impossible. A lot of players do it, but that balancing act of, getting your pitching reps in, but also getting your hitting reps in.
She's a worker. She wants to do it. When she misses it in practice, she's like, hey, I need to stay after. Can I make up what I didn't do? I'm like, hey, let's give your body a break. And she's like, no, like I want to be out there. Some days I tell her like, hey, Trent, you're not hitting today. I look out of my office and she's out there hitting. I'm like, hey, what did we talk about? Let's give your body a break. But last year at Maryland, she played a lot of right field and she can play it and she can be great at it. But the big thing for us is we want to keep her healthy. We want to keep her fresh. We want her to be able to hit and pitch. And so if she has to go in and play right field, she can. The goal is that we added some other things around her that she doesn't have to do that, so that she can just focus on being in the offensive lineup or, oops.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had a call and it showed up on my screen. I apologize.
It happens. You're a bit important person.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, so she wants to play right field. We've talked about it. But for us, we don't know how that's going to play out yet. Obviously injuries happen, things happen with some others. And so
there you go. Well, the other thing I will say, she gives you options too. Like and if you decided you could play her like a DP spot and do a flip back and forth if you want to use her in relief in a game, if that comes to it. You're not saying that you have options. That's what I'm saying. You've got a lot of options with her that how you use her.
Yes, no, she definitely gives us options, which is why we got her. She says sometimes she's like, hey, I'm bored. I'm like, how are you bored? You hit and you pitch, so she's just a kid that wants to do it all. And that's what makes her great.
And you mentioned Jane Martinez. I've seen her live at USF, has a great arm, still a young kid arm. What does she bring to the table? And obviously she's familiar with the league, being with USF last year and pitching in the American, having some success when she did pitch last year.
She's a lefty, right? In our game, you need to have people that look different. And so when we were building the staff is you can have 5 pitchers, but if they all look the same and all do the same, what is it doing, right? So Jaden brings something a little bit different. She has grown so much and she is a kid that she wants you to believe in her. And when you believe in her and she believes in you, she has turned an absolute corner. And so we're excited because we have 3 years with her. And so that's something that, when she was going through the process, she got interest from teams all across the country. And the fact that, she wanted to stay in Florida, that was important to her. And I was honest with her. I said, hey, we have 4 other pitchers. I do not know how this is going to play out. And she goes, I want to prove it to you. And so the fact that she came in determined and motivated to show her worth was huge. And that was somebody that, she wanted the ball and she wanted to prove to the pitchers that she deserved to be here. And she's done just that. She's had a really successful fall. Her and Nicole have added some new little things to her toolbox. And so I'm excited for what she brings. She brings experience, and starting 15 games in the American against some really good competition, you would be silly not to want a kid like that on your staff.
Offensively, you got a lot of new faces on offense, but also some returns. Talk about your offense. Who are some of your leaders on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, we returned Cameo Pursuti, who was our leadoff hitter last year. She's a slapper. She's speed. She looks just as good, if not better, than she did last year. You returned Jesse Anamora, who was a freshman who played all 55 games last year. You've got Zoe Jones, who is a 3-year starter at first base. So those are our 3 that really were the top of the lineup last year that really helped us out. We added a bunch, right? At one time, people were calling us transfer U. I got to hear it from everybody I talked to. But I also think that in this world, you gotta put your team in the best position. You've got to put your program first. And, we had some really hard and honest conversations with our team. And, where did we struggle last year? We struggled offensively. We were improved from the year before, but to the standard that I like, we weren't where we needed to be. So we decided to make some waves this summer. Some of the ones that I think are going to be really good for us, you've got Cameron Jackson from Duke. She's been a blessing, and I am so thankful she decided to be an owl. And she, from her leadership, from just how she approaches and thinks through her patterns and just offense, like she's just been really impressive. And then you've got Presley Liebrick, who's a career 300 hitter. Those are 2 lefties. If you ever play at our park, you know that the ball flies better for lefties than righties. And so that was something after playing in our park last year that I knew that we had more success with our lefty hitters. So for me, I was going to go out and find lefties, and I was going to find some experience. And so you have those 2 for sure. And then you've got Meg Mall, who came from Missouri. I think people are going to be shocked. We tweaked her swing and changed it a little bit, and the girl is hitting it harder than she's ever hit it, and she's more confident than she's been. And so I think that that's something that we really tried was, hey, we are going to get some offensive weapons. And so I can truly say that, adding Gabby Baylog from Virginia, you've got Kate DeLeon from Troy. We've added a lot. And, Callie Kildow from Arkansas, she's a triple threat. She's going to bring speed, which we didn't have a ton of. So every decision we made was with a purpose. And to see them integrate into our system and with our team so effortless, like it's been really impressive. So I'm excited. I do think we're going to look completely different offensively this year. I hope at least.
You mentioned Megan Maw. I saw her in person at Missouri when she was catching. You mentioned what you've done with her offense. Is she somebody you're going to use behind the plate? And talk about that value, because that helps your pitching staff and your defense as a whole.
Yeah, so Meg and Kate are going to probably be our primary catchers, and they are going to split time. They both bring a lot to the table. Kate brings experience. She's been in those big moments. She caught a whole season last year. Meg is somebody that at Missouri bounced around from positions and tried to find a home. And so we focused her in just at catching this fall, and she has improved dramatically. She has a cannon for an arm. And with Kate's game experience, decision making, both of them combined make a really good unit. And so we talk a lot about, we don't know how it's going to go, but we at least know that you're both ready and you're both going to accept whatever happens. And so they've been awesome to work with.
How do you get all these different faces, all these different personalities to gel as a team and bond? What are some activities? Because I know, talking to a lot of coaches, it really starts in the fall. That's what a big part of the fall is, that gelling. And obviously you figure out some things. You tinker with things. You experiment with things, with lineups and where they could play and stuff, and that plays itself out. But as far as that bonding, that chemistry, what have you done to kind of get all these new faces on the same page? This group.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. We have 15 new faces, 8 transfers and 7 freshmen. We spent the first week before we touched the softball, hey, we're going to figure it out off the field. And so it's something that it's still a work in progress, but I was a teacher for 3 years before I became a coach. So creativity is kind of my thing. And I like activities. I like games. I like challenges. I like putting the girls in different situations that aren't just softball focused. And so whether we start practice with a challenge, in practice with a challenge, do some team activities, it's them learning who are you when adversity hits you? Who are you when things are easy? Who are you when you're uncomfortable? And so that's been our big theme of our staff is we have got to make sure that they feel all these different things. We encourage them off the field to get to know each other. You're not going to be best friends, but you're also going to love and respect each other, and you're always going to choose the program. And so we live by our core values. We have our 5 core values. We have our team theme. If you've seen social media, you've seen we've done some pretty cool, crazy things this fall. And so that stuff will continue as well. But we definitely try to do a lot of stuff off the field.
Easy to bond too, when you're not too far away from a beach. I mean, that I've
Yeah,
noticed that.
except when they hear the word beach workout, let me tell you what, they get so nervous. I'm like, guys, it's not that bad. They're like, you do it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good on that. But, we get really creative. We have the beach, we do beach workouts, we do sunrises at the beach, not necessarily working out, but just getting together and them, having to talk through life and situations and, being vulnerable with your transfers. Why did you transfer? Right. A lot of them are like, did you come here to take my spot? And no, that's not the case. And we always say everybody has a story, and you have to figure out what that story is, and you have to figure out the why. And it's our job as coaches to help them get there. And we've done some boxing. That's kind of fits into our team theme this year. So learning how to fight for what you believe in, fight for your position, fight for your program, fight for your coaches. So that's been a theme that we've really tapped into.
I believe, if my math correct, what you got 27 players on the roster? What is that? What is it?
27 strong, baby, and we love every single one of them.
So is that by design? Do you like having a big roster? Is that just how it played out? What's your philosophy as far as roster size?
I think that there's no perfect number, right? A lot of people say, well, we like a small roster. Okay, well, if we get a small roster and you have some injuries or you have somebody that leaves, then you're in trouble. Do I like a big, huge roster? No one's going to say yes. I do think now, knowing personalities 1 through 27, I tell our girls all the time, I can't imagine not having any of you here. Right. And there's sometimes you go through it and you're like, you have end of the fall meetings and you're kind of like, I wonder if somebody's going to leave or stay. And I told him, I was like, I would be devastated if come January, one of you weren't here. Is it going to be challenging? Yes. Dealing with 27 personalities, 27 people to have opportunities, but learning the value of every single one of them helps me grow as a coach. In a perfect world, we travel 22 players. And that's something that I choose to do. And so knowing that we're going to have 5 players potentially not travel is really hard. And it's really sad because you learn to love and grow together. And so knowing that we're not going to have all 27 travel with us is going to be tough. We talk about it in the recruiting space of, hey, I want the roster to be smaller, but I want to do it the right way. I'm never going to kick people off. I'm never going to tell people they don't belong here. And so eventually over time with recruiting, it will go down. In a perfect world, 22 is the magic number. But when it happens, it happens. And until then, we're going to enjoy all 27 and we're just going to make it work.
When we spoke last year, I remember you said if you weren't in coaching, you'd probably be teaching somewhere.
Yeah.
That was kind of where you were headed, right? That direction, to teach. I'm
Yeah.
wondering how much of that is that going to help you here with 27 players? Because part of teaching, right, in a class, it could be a class of 15, could be a class of 30. Every student, you gotta keep it. You gotta lock in on every kid and what they're doing and how they're progressing in class, and if they're doing well, they're not doing well. Does that help you, having that passion that you had for teaching and that kind of like knowledge and learning that will apply here to coaching? It's no different, is it? That different?
It's not. And I will tell you this. At first in my career, when I was first getting started at Arkansas, I was so bummed. I felt like I was behind everybody because I spent 3 years in the classroom versus 3 years on the softball field getting experience. I would not be who I am today if I did not go into that classroom. And if you can survive in a 6th grade classroom with 30 different personalities sitting in the desk coming from 30 different backgrounds, you can survive just about anything. And so I am who I am because of the classroom. I love it. It's made me creative. It's made me think. It has opened my eyes to a lot of different things. And we talk a lot about with our girls, there's different type of learners, right? You have auditory learners who need to hear it. You have your visual learners who need to see it. You have your kinesthetic learners who need to feel it. And so I think that being in the classroom opened my eyes to that. And now coaching, it's understanding that all 27 need something different. And it's my job to figure out what they need and to figure out and them feel value. So yes, the classroom definitely helps me. I'm so glad I'm a college softball coach now. Would I go back to the classroom if I absolutely had to? Sure, why not? I never say never on anything, but I do love coaching college.
Yeah, it's a little different. There's some more perks on the coaching side,
Yeah.
and more travel.
Yeah.
You're not in the room like 5 days a week, per
Correct.
se. I want to ask you, your staff has exploded, like it's growth, like it's kind of night and day with last year when you were limited. Just talk about that development about your staff, because I remember we had last year that was a work in progress and things like that, but now your staff is bigger. You've got 2 grad assistants. You've got an extra assistant, which everybody in softball now does. So you have the full-time assistants. You got to just speak of this growth of this staff and how it's evolved.
Yeah, how awesome when you go to that website and you can just keep
It's a
scrolling.
lot.
So we added Krista Harrell, who used to be an assistant coach at Auburn. She played at Auburn. She has obviously helped us out tremendously. We've added Elizabeth Hightower as a GA from Florida, who's an All-American. We've added Desiree Maldonado from USF, who brings a ton of experience. We have Dom's our student assistant. And then we've got Julie Money, who is our director of ops. And so we went from 3 people on staff to now 9, including our athletic trainer. And so it's just a testament to FAU as well. And Brian and Mary seeing our vision as a staff and knowing that, hey, we want FAU to be one of the best teams in the country and to be in the conversation with quote unquote big dogs, right? And to do that, you have to start with the staff. And we need our girls to know that it matters. It matters to have every position filled. And so that was something that we really went to work on. And, it started with Elizabeth. Elizabeth was interested in us. And from there, it just kind of grew and they make us better. They make us better. And it's so cool to see Elizabeth coming from Florida and to see how excited and how happy she is to be at work every day. And for our girls to see that and for her to use her voice, it's been special. She is an amazing human. Des is a worker. She is a worker. And so we're so lucky and we're so thankful that they give us the opportunity to have this many staff members. In our building, some of the coaches are like, hey, how do you have all these people? And I'm like, I don't know. But I just avoid it. I avoid the question.
Smart.
Um, but no, but they've been awesome to allow us to have all the resources that we need to be successful. And so everybody brings their own thing. And of course we returned Nicole and we returned Taylor. And I'm going to be honest, those were 2 people that were a hot topic this summer. Nicole has the conference pitcher of the year. Gabby's in the top 20 in the country in every statistical category. You take a number 3 pitcher to a number 1 and just lights out. Of course they're going to get phone calls and they're going to get people interested in them. And then Taylor is one of the top assistants in the country and can do a lot of different things and aspires to be a head coach someday. And so, it's one of those things that I was just lucky to get them for another year. And, we go year by year, but knowing that you have people that are getting those phone calls means that you're doing the right thing as a boss and the program is allowing them to grow and to have opportunities.
Yeah, Taylor Smart now your associate head coach, and of course
Yeah.
Nicole Newman, the pitcher coach. And I'm glad you brought it because you're right. Those 2 names popped up a lot of places already. It felt really awkward for me. I'm like, should I let her know?
I know. And it's so hard because it's like, now I know how my bosses felt at one time. And so until you sit in this seat, you don't know. And it's like this selfish feeling of like, gosh, last year was so great. I want to keep everybody, but at the same time, I know what their dreams and goals and aspirations are. And when both of them said, this is where we want to be, like this is where we want to grow. It made me cry. Like I literally cried this summer knowing that both of them wanted to come back and invest in our program. And I just, I owe everything to them. You're only as good as who you surround yourself with, and to know that they love me, they support me, they see me at my best moments, they see me at my worst moments, and that they chose to come back to FAU. They had opportunities, and they knew what we were building. We knew what we were getting this year. We know we have recruits coming in. And so I think that it says something to build it, right? It's easy to walk into a program that is nationally known and ranked and has all the bells and the whistles, but to be a part of the growth is priceless. And they felt that.
Now that you have all these people on the staff, how does that how do you adjust? Because you mentioned it last year, you're probably used to doing a lot of different hats because you had to. You were limited on what you had staff wise. Now you don't have those limitations. Is it easy to delegate and give more? Or is that something you've had to adjust to?
I've had to adjust. If you know me, you know that sometimes I can be type A and I can want to just do it myself because I do like things done a certain way. But I think that the coaches that do that, your staff ends up resenting you a little bit. And so I have had to make to-do lists, and, we talk at the beginning of the week, hey, this is what each of you are going to work on for the week. We've made org charts of, hey, these are the different categories and the topics that you're in charge of for the year. So if your to-do list is done, how can you chip away at stuff that's maybe for the spring? And so it's definitely me having to be organized, because if not, I think the first couple of weeks, bless their hearts, they're all coming in, hey, what can I do? What can I help you with? Can I do this? And I'm like, whew, I'm overwhelmed, right? I'm overwhelmed because we haven't had this many people in the past. And so it's making sure that I communicate. And I think that's been something that I have to tell them exactly what I want, exactly what we need. So we're not all working on the same project. And so we've definitely grown throughout the fall. I was not great at it in the beginning. I will always admit my wrongs. And but I definitely think that we are in a really good place now, and we have a system, and we've gotten to work through having so many people, because people don't realize that, like, okay, it's cool to have all these different resources, but how can each person feel value? If you're just showing up to work and you feel like you're just a practice person, you're not going to feel value. So how can you give them things that are important to them and that they feel like they can put their own mark on?
When we spoke last year, you were still in the process of figuring out your staff, but you told me you were probably going to run the offense, but you were going to keep an open mind to see, hey, if things aren't going well, or if I'm not, if I feel it's affecting me as a head coach, I will adjust. And if I have to bring somebody else in, I will do that and all that. How do you feel on the balancing that? Because part of the reason you got the job was because of your offensive mind, your hitting coach, the job you've done elsewhere. That was you were known for. That's why your name, as you mentioned, was floated out there for other jobs and things like that. And we had Whitney Jones on, who's the assistant now at Ohio State, and said, man, Jordan left a lot of great players in hand there. So how did that go? Running the offense, but you're also the head coach. Was it like was it as smooth as you would have liked? Were you pleased, or are you making any adjustments to that?
Yeah, so I definitely did our offense last year. That was one reason why I hired Taylor Smart, because she is just as good on defense as she is on offense. And, for us, when I look at last year, and I think across the country, the first thing you're going to look at when you're talking about head coaches or, hitting coaches, you're going to go look at your team's numbers. Okay, people are going to see our numbers and go, like they were okay. But if you look at the growth from the year before, that was something that I really had to buy into was, hey, we are better in every statistical category offensively. We grew a ton. And everybody wants boom right away. And so for me, it was as disappointed as I was at times last year and how many games we lost by one run. We lost 10 games by one run. You start to think about, okay, is that me? What can I do better as the offensive coach? And so this summer we went to work and we had some conversations. I talked to colleagues, I talked to friends, talking with Taylor, and we just started to figure out, okay, how can we take this to the next level? We obviously changed some things in what we do offensively and kind of came up with some new ideas. And so that's something that is adjusted a little bit, is just some little bit different philosophy stuff, and kind of growing with the game. But for the most part, it stayed the same. I think, days I'm on the field, Taylor's in the cages, and we kind of try to mix it up that way. And so there's not just one voice. We all kind of have a voice, but we all preach the same thing. And that's something that's big for me, is having a united front when it comes to whether it's pitching, defense, or offense, is, hey, we're all going to talk the same things so that our kids aren't confused and our kids aren't running to one coach or the other. But no, I mean, I was excited. I think that this year I have devoted more time to being available for our hitters, whereas last year I was trying to survive. This year, spending, whether it's extra time that the girls want to spend in the cages, watching film, watching video in the office, we've just become more available because now we have our feet underneath us. So I think that's something that's definitely changed.
Well, and I've had a lot of coaches that coach hitting have told me they see, it seems like it clicks for players that return. That second year is where it starts to click. That first year is kind of, no matter how much you try to simplify it or how complicated or whatever, there's that transition period that you just can't speed up. Like, as frustrating as it might be as a coach, you have to be patient that first year because it's a process. But by the second year, most players figure it out because it's by habit by now. Do you
Yeah,
sense that too in the fall?
yeah, I think there was some aha moments this fall, and we love data, we love metrics, we love video. And so some of our returners from last year, we pulled up video from their first day last year and we compared, and they're like, I used to look like that. And I'm like, yes, like this is you. This is you. And so I think there was definitely those aha moments. Like, we are so much more advanced than where we were last year at this time. And, we do fall evaluations, and to hear, like, I remember asking the question, okay, hey, what did you like on offense that we did this fall? Where can I be better as your hitting coach? Right. And then I had one of my girls write, I love everything that we did. And I'm like, wow, okay, cool. So I definitely think year two is so much easier. I think the part that made me nervous the most, being completely vulnerable, was bringing in transfers who are graduate transfers who have been at a program for 4 years and had a certain philosophy and did things a certain way. And I was like, are they going to be open to some new ideas? And so knowing that they have fully bought in and they are like loving it, loving the drills, loving just the setup of practice, has been really cool as well. So the buy-in's been awesome. Year two is so much easier than year one. And I tell our girls, I'm so excited. I'm so excited from seeing their numbers this fall to seeing just where we're at. Gosh, year two has been great. Year one was awesome. I still talk to a lot of our girls who graduated, and we laugh about the start. They will forever be the infamous start of my career at FAU.
How important is communication when it comes to that? It was funny you bring that up because I spoke to Becca Muellers, now the UCF hitting coach. That sister's been at Cal, was a
Yeah.
great player at Charleston. And she told me, obviously, she's adjusting. She's got a veteran group. And one of the things, the key is listening, much even more than technique, because you might have your philosophy ideas, but the player has to buy in. And if a player's done it her way successful, you don't want to mess with that either. So there's that balancing act. So how much is communication important to you in determining, okay, this player, we could tweak some things and make him better, or you know what, maybe I don't mess with this player because it's working that way. Like, how do you balance that out? Communication is a factor in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that communication is everything. It is everything that you do. It is, the footprint to everything of how a program runs smoothly. So I think that for me in the beginning, we talk about, what are your goals? What do you like in your swing? What do you think you need to get better at? What are some of your strengths? What are some of your weaknesses? What are your non-negotiables? What are you willing to touch versus not? We talk a lot about your style, what's your setup, what's the end goal throughout your swing? Where do we need to get to? And so with everything in that sense, we just really try to break down, and we do smaller group stuff. And so I think that when you're trying to hit with 9 to 10 people in a session, you don't get that, right? Instead, you want to make sure that if I can get them 4-on-1, 2-on-1, then we can really talk about what do they need. And so yeah, I mean, I had one of our girls is like, well, how come I'm not doing that drill? And I'm like, well, you don't need to do that drill. You don't have that problem. And she goes, but it looks fun. I want to do it. And I'm like, you're working on something completely different. And so one day a kid hit the ball and she's like, how did that look? And I'm like, do you need me to say good job after every swing? She's like, yeah, I'd really like that. I'm like, okay, if you need that, I got you. And so our girls they're comfortable with this. And I think that's something that, like, I pride myself on and our staff on, is we really get to know them. Right. And, one of them comes in and says, hey, I didn't feel like I maybe had this at my last school. And so it's not a knock to their old school. It's just, these student athletes want you to know them, and they want you to feel like it's not just softball, softball, softball. And so they ask questions. Don't get me wrong. They
Right.
ask questions. So we let them ask whatever they want. Like, there is no bad question in my book. And I tell them, I'd rather you ask. We had one in an end of the fall meeting. She says, hey, that drill that we've been doing, why do we do that? I'm like, why are you just asking that? You should have asked that, 2-3 weeks ago. And she was like, I just trusted you. I just thought if we did it, it was going to make us better. She was like, but now I just want to know. I'm like, that's cool though, that they feel comfortable asking that.
Well, that's a great point you make, because I've heard that it's different now. Like when you played, you probably were told to do something. You just did it, right? You didn't ask. Even if maybe in your own mind you're kind of wondering, why am I doing this? But you didn't feel comfortable, or you didn't, whatever reason, you just didn't ask. Nowadays, players are more comfortable in asking. It's no, you know, they, because that's how they want to be. If you want to buy in, I want to know why we're doing this.
Yeah.
When did you notice that change in the sport? And how, you know, from that standpoint, because it was, like I said, it used to be you were told what to do, you do it, but that is not the case anymore. Now, you mentioned it, a lot of coaches, the key is that communication and getting them, hey, this is why we're doing this for you. This is how this is going to benefit you.
Yeah, I think like my first coaching stop, you know, I got to sit back that first year and evaluate a lot, and my voice and my role was a little bit different. And so from then, that was 8 years ago. And so starting to see that is when I really kind of started to see, like, they would give them a drill and then their wheels would start spinning. They'd want to ask it, didn't know how to ask it, then they would ask it, it would come off wrong. And so I think now, you know, I'm like, hey, listen, like, we're from the get-go, we are going to ask the question, we're going to say it, your tone, your timing, and how you ask it is super important, so that you don't feel like you're kind of coming at someone. So we talk a little bit about that, but I definitely think it's changed over the years. I'm a why person. That's my personality, is like, if I know the why, I will do whatever it takes. If I don't know the why, I'm going to struggle. And I knew that was me as a player. You know, if our coach told me to go run a mile, I was kind of a little brat in a way. I'm like, well, we don't run a mile in softball. That's how my brain would think,
Right.
right? So I try to take coaching of like, okay, what are all the things that I struggled with when I was playing? Because if I had that question X amount of years ago, I'm not going to say our age, but if I had that many questions, then I know they're going to feel the same way. And so whether it's conditioning, hitting, school activities, I try to say, hey, this is why we're doing it. Period. Like, if you know my why, then you're not going to question if it's for the good of the program. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with the why. It doesn't mean you have to agree with what the activity is, but knowing the why and not leaving you guessing or them feeling like you're trying to sneak something in there
Sure.
is important. So definitely knowing the why.
Yeah, no, that's a big part of the game and landscape, not just in softball. In a lot of sports, we could spend hours on that. But you've got a life. I don't. So I want to ask you a couple more things before we let you go. You're a big sports nut. That's why we've gone along, because you love all sports. And if people follow you on social media, you're at sporting events. You have followed FAU basketball everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Like, I remember, I think you texted me. You were at Madison Square Garden, right? Was it a Sweet 16 or Elite Eight game you were at?
Sweet 16, they won to make it to the Elite Eight.
To beat Tennessee, to beat them to get to the Elite Eight. You went down to Orlando this year where they played in the ESPN Invitational. I want to ask you about the FAU basketball program, which is obviously has exploded since we last spoke on the pod. Dusty May has become a huge coach name now in the sport. I'm wondering, how much interaction do you have with him, and what do you take from him that you can apply to your own style and coaching? Because his situation was different. He built the FAU basketball program from scratch, really. You didn't have to do that necessarily, but at the same time, you're taking over a program like he had to. So I'm curious, the synergy there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's my job as a head coach at FAU is to dive into all the sports teams. We all have really good things that we're doing, and we need to figure out what makes each team successful in their own way. And so I want people to come and support us. And so I think it's important that I get out there and support other people. And it's not doing it because I want people to show up to our games, but I want people to know that I genuinely care, and I care about their athletes. I care about what they're doing. I care about making FAU a nationally known name. And so I want to be a part of every little thing. And so, you know, when it comes to Dusty and his staff, my gosh, like, he left a blueprint of, you know, how do you do this? And so, you know, it's taken him 5 years, and, you know, our goal is for it not to take us 5 years. And how do we learn from him at a faster pace, now having that resource in front of us? I am very fortunate that Dusty and his wife Anna has friended my husband and I. And you know, whether it's a Halloween party or whether it's, you know, dinner or whatever it is, I've definitely gotten to build that relationship with him and his wife. And so I'm forever thankful for that they've kind of taken us in. With that being said, a funny story a little bit is, so if you watch Dusty on the sidelines, he's super calm. He doesn't get super emotional. He is very smooth. No matter if his kids throw the ball away, miss a wide open shot, his demeanor never changes. You know me, especially on the podcast, I am up and I'm down and you feel it. It's a lot of energy. And so when we were coaching last year, halfway through the season, like I was getting pretty animated, one run ball games, we're not hitting at times. And I'm just like looking at my staff like, come on, guys. And so finally, this is where you have a staff that's open and honest with you. As I remember one of our assistants going, hey, listen, I think that sometimes it's a lot. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you think? She's like, hey, like, I just think our girls are nervous as it is. Like, we've got to figure out how to stay calm, cool, and collected. Sweet. Awesome. I went to a basketball game and Dusty was on the sidelines and it hit me. It was like an epiphany. So one of his guys did something. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did he stay so calm in that moment? So fast forward, we're playing at Middle Tennessee and I'm getting on the bus and I tell him, I'm like, all right, guys, I was telling our assistants, like, hey, I watched basketball. Dusty was so calm. You're going to see a new version of me this weekend. And they're like, okay, we'll believe it when we see it. So we're playing a 12 inning game. Okay.
Oh boy.
And Gabby and their Middleton's pitcher, they are just going at it. Her name's Gretchen, and they are just inning for inning, just killing it. And there's at times where we had bases loaded, no outs, didn't score. Runners on second and third, 1 out, didn't score. I stayed as calm, never changed facial expressions. I went into the huddle and I'm like, we've got this, we're gonna win, all the things. And after the game, I looked at Taylor and Nicole and I said, hey, Jordan May was here today. Like that was who it was instead of Dusty May. I was like, Jordan May was here. I was calm. I was cool. I was collected. And so that was kind of the ongoing joke throughout the whole year was, hey, we want Jordan May. And so I had to tell Dusty that. We all got a good laugh out of that. But yeah, I mean, Dusty's Dusty. And the fact that I think something that was special, I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, but he had so many opportunities to leave. He had people throwing money out at him. Their players had NIL deals thrown out at him. And for him to choose FAU and know that that's where his family wanted to be, his players, there was only 5 teams in the country that did not have any transfer, any guys in the transfer portal, and FAU was one of them. And Dusty chose to turn down millions and millions to go other places. Shows how special FAU is and the potential that's here. And so I think that for me as a young coach, it's not about your next stop, it's about where your feet are. And so just showing how proud he is of FAU is something that, I don't take lightly. And I want to make sure that, people see that in me as well.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
I have so many follow-ups to that. Number one, I love the fact that your assistant's confident enough to bring this up to you, which I'm wondering, how much do you encourage them to be honest with you in that front? Because you were in their shoes as an assistant. So I'm curious if that was already in play where hey, I appreciate you being honest with me on that and not necessarily calling you out, but basically saying, hey, I'm noticing this about you. How important is that trust in your staff that they're willing to say to you, hey, I think you're a little, I think you're kind of making your players nervous here by being emotional. I thought that's a fascinating part there.
Yeah, like I'm super competitive. And I think our girls last year at times just wanted to play softball.
Yeah.
And I wanted to win at softball, right?
Sure.
I think they wanted to win, but I think there's a different level to it, right? Win at all costs. And so at times they just loved the process, whereas, I wanted the end result. And so I love our staff. I'm telling you, like, I hope when people hear this, they know like how special it is to have amazing people around you that truly look out for you. And I tell them all the time, hey, how can I be better? What do y'all need from me? Because I know that if they can say that to me, then it's making the program better. I think some places you go, the assistants feel something, want to say something, and instead they end up saying it to a player or another staff member. And then it just ends up being just not good for the program. And so knowing that we get to have those conversations is super important to me. And they put me in my place. I'm telling you, they do. And I love it.
Well, it tells me you're still a student of this. You're still a student of the game. Like, you still like learning this stuff. Like, that's my other follow-up, because the fact you're studying Dusty May and his demeanor in the bench, like, you're still learning on, how can I be better at this there? And so how much do you study coaches, whether it's a Dusty May, whether it's other Courtney Deifel, other coaches, and try to pick out some things as to kind of evolve in your own style?
I mean, if you think about it, the game is forever evolving, right? There is a reason why records are made to be broken, why stats are broken, is because the coaching gets better and better. The players get better and better. We don't do it by doing the same thing over and over. And so, it is our job as coaches to continuously develop and learn from other people. And so whether it's from our baseball staff, whether it's from, the Charlotte coaching staff, whether it's from UCF, whether it's from Courtney at Arkansas, there's things we can take, right? Charlotte gets an automatic bid last year. Obviously, with Ashley, she scheduled really well, right? Even though we are competitive opponents, hey, she did something great. I'm going to recognize it. How can we build our schedule to give us a chance as well? Okay, Courtney was once my boss, my mentor. I saw the relationships that she had with student athletes, the buy-in. Okay, how can I take that? I look at different sports across the country, right? Like Tom Herman came to FAU, and the way he got out in the community and wasn't afraid to try new challenges and things. Like, you just have to take from it. You have to read books. You have to watch podcasts. I am fortunate that we live at the beach. I have to throw that little simple shout out, but I will put my headphones in and I will listen to different podcasts. I will, watch different things. And so it's like, hey, even though they're not in our conference or they're not in our program, they're successful, they might say one thing that I can get, right? Like, we were just at NFCA convention, and, every presentation I listened to, even if I already knew what they were talking about, I wrote notes down. And it's like, you are constantly a student of the game. We expect it from our athletes. And so why aren't we held to the same standard? And so, I love learning. I love trying new things. And I think that there's so many different ways to do things. And if one way doesn't work, you got to figure it out.
Well, and I remember last year when you just got the job you were on, you told me one of the programs you wanted to model your feel around was UCF, because you had seen what Coach Ball Malone did in person when Ohio State played UCF in 2022, which was the year that UCF hosted, and they won the American. And you said, hey, we're going to the American. We want to do the same things. We could do the same things. And I saw it from a opponent standpoint, how she did it. Fast forward, you see what Dusty did with FAU basketball and coming out of nowhere and be the story of the sport last year, and continuing that as we talk this year, being in the top 25 in the American. How much do you talk to your players about that? The fact that, hey, look what FAU, look what your fellow student at basketball is done for that program. We can be like that. Hey, I played a UCF team that won the American host. We can do that. How much do you message that to your players?
I'm going to be honest. So we do team meetings on Mondays, and we work off of our core values. And if one of those things fit into our core value, we might talk about it. We gave some examples of Colorado football. We've given examples of our basketball team. And so we've given examples of UConn basketball. And so I try to bring different sports into it, because sports are sports. The message should be the same. And so sometimes we get so locked into softball as our life. So it's important for me to try to pull from different sports and how to make those connections. We laughed, like last year we wore red on Sundays. Tiger Woods wears red on
Oh,
Sundays.
yeah.
That's the winning color. And so we do little things like that to try to keep it fun and interesting. But my big philosophy is focus on us. We're not going to say, hey, at the end of the season, we got to win a championship. At the end of the season, we got to go to regionals. At the end of the season, our batting average has to be this. It's, hey, let's focus on FAU softball and be the best version of us. What that looks like, we have no idea. But at the end of the day, we're going to take little examples from programs. It does not mean you have to be UCF softball. It doesn't mean you have to be FAU basketball, because if you compare, that's just going to cause misery, right? Like,
Sure.
that is something that our society right now, as we are constantly comparing, whether it's on social media or even coaching staff, it's like, well, why did that person get called for that job and I didn't? Or why is this? And so for us, it's focus on you, be strong, confident version of yourself. We're going to do that as coaches, and whatever happens, happens. And if something comes out of it, great. And if it doesn't, in your heart, you did it for the right reasons. And so that's important for us. It's just kind of focus on us. One of our core values is choose us. We're going to choose us when it's hard and when it's easy. And so that's important to us.
Last question before I let you go. What's going to be a couple keys and questions for this team once you get going in the season? You get to February before you know it. What are the couple keys, maybe a couple questions in your mind that you're curious to find out about your team when you're facing other opponents?
How do we handle adversity? I think that's the number one thing. I think we have a ton of talent. I think we are deep. I think we are the deepest that I've honestly been in 8 years coaching.
Wow.
which I know is crazy because I have been a part of some really awesome teams. That's how confident I am in our ability. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. I think that, how do we handle failure? What if that first weekend I don't swing the bat the way that I want to, or I don't pitch the way that I want to? How do I recover and have short-term memory is going to be important for us. And also, how do I handle competition at my position? Because I do think we are too deep at each position to where if one person's not getting it done, we kind of move on to the next person for a little bit. How do we handle that when maybe I've been a starter my whole career, or maybe I was a star at my other school, or maybe, hey, I transferred here because I wanted to play and have a different experience. So I do think there's all those question marks of how is all that going to play in, but how do we handle adversity is going to be number one. And then I think the second one is we play at home for 3 weekends in a row. What are we going to do on the road, right? How are we going to handle a new conference? So I think that that's a little bit of it, but I'm really proud of this group. I'm really excited for this group. I go into Christmas break being able to take a deep breath and go, okay, we have done everything that we could as a staff. They have trained. They stayed until the last possible day that they could. They were in the weight room together. Like, it's just impressive to see that they are committed. We did not force it. We did not do it. They want this so bad. And I don't know, like it's definitely special. This group, like, I'm really sad that we're losing this group at the end of this year, because for the first time in my career, like, I genuinely see how much every single one of them love each other. I genuinely see how much they love softball, and how much they love our staff. And so seeing all that makes you sad. You can't start thinking about the end, but
Yeah.
you start thinking about, like, wow, like I only have this group for 1 year. And that's going to be tough. I think that some of our seniors, we're going to have 11 seniors. I think our seniors are going to go through some emotions of this is a last, right? Like, this is my last time playing softball. This is my last time traveling. This is my
Sure.
last fall game. We had some tears this fall. I'm like, why are we crying? And they're like, this is my last fall game. And I'm like, no, 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 we're not crying. So I definitely think that that's gonna be some tough stuff, but I'm excited. I really am. Like, I want people to come watch us. We're ready. We're ready for whatever the season brings, but we'll see.
That is Jordan Clark, FAU head coach. Get ready for the season here, or second season at FAU. Awesome to talk to you. You're one of our favorites. I know this was a lengthy conversation, but always enjoy talking to you and your candor about not just your team, your program, but the sport in a nutshell. And certainly, we're gonna have to figure this out in the future. Maybe we do the podcast from the beach. Can we? We may have to hire like a producer or something to like figure out the logistics on that.
I'm in. Let's do it at the end of the season.
All right, Coach. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. Go Owls.